Hello, this is my maternal-newborn final clinical assignment, and I'm gonna have the questions here so that I can read them. First question, in what ways did your clinical experience change your perspective on the maternal-newborn population? I don't think my perspective necessarily changed, but I think it more so broadened and kind of strengthened my previous way of thinking about the maternal newborn population, just in the way that, I was able to see a C-section and a vaginal birth for the first time and really seeing like what the family goes through during those experiences kind of opened my eyes to a lot of different factors, especially taking into consideration that everyone has a different background and everyone has a different medical history or social history and different family dynamics, and that's just all very important to consider. I think with newborns too, it's just very eye-opening to see how they do adjust to extrauterine life, which is kind of beautiful. Very beautiful, actually. And yeah. For the second one, from my feedback, how have I used this to improve my performance? For my assignments, I have used it to more so modify my care plans and my clinical paperwork in general. Kind of using it as a way to think more critically and consider more than just clinical manifestations when it comes to creating a nursing diagnosis and coming up with those interventions. And then just other things that I would have missed in my clinical paperwork that maybe I had asked a nurse about, and maybe it was not completely what was asked from me. So just learning more in general. From my midterm evaluations, that helped me to improve my performance by honestly really motivating me. I think that there were a lot of positive reinforcements in my midterm evaluations, and it kind of gave me a boost to want to lead my clinical group more and not necessarily think that I'm always going to be the leader, but to allow myself to learn from everyone and also be able to help them. So we in turn like kind of are a team, which is I think the best way to look at it. From feedback from the clinical facility, just being on site, I would ask my nurses that I was assigned to what I could do better, or always what I can help with. I know that it is kind of challenging when we don't have as many clinical days, just to not want to get into the nurse's way, especially if they have a flow to things. And I think that the biggest thing that I've learned from them, or that they've given me, is that I have to find my own flow, which is hard as a student, but just being able to apply knowledge from our lecture into the clinical setting and trying to anticipate the needs of our nurse, trying to be ahead of the game so that we can actually help, is probably the biggest feedback that I worked on almost for every clinical that we've had. Post-conference activity that was most beneficial to my learning, and why? I think SBAR does help, the feedback from it, so that we can, work on that in the real setting, because that truly is very crucial when you're doing an SBAR in real life, so you're not kind of going on a tangent, but also not leaving out critical information about your patient. The Kahoot, also very helpful. That's probably one of my favorite things that we did in post-conference, and honestly all of nursing school, it really helps to do Kahoot just because it's interactive and I'm competitive. So it kind of gives you a little motivation to want to win. Even if you don't win, it's still a fun activity that, you know, challenges you to test your knowledge. And then the other one that I really liked was the taboo. I thought that was really fun and a unique way to think about material that we've learned in class and work as a team to communicate that in simple terms. It kind of makes you think of things in a different way, and then just learning how other people communicate that as well. What was the most rewarding or challenging patient interaction I experienced, and why do I feel this way? I think the most rewarding patient interaction that I had was in postpartum, because I think that I was able to connect with the patient that I had and really talk to her and learn about, you know, her preferences and what she would do to cope, because she did have multiple children at home and then had twins. So that's definitely a challenge, but it was rewarding to be able to talk to her and almost be a person that she could talk to as well. And then a challenging patient interaction was probably my first day of clinical, just trying to interact with the family, the mom and then the father of the baby, because they were first-time parents, and it was my first clinical experience. And I honestly, not that I don't know what to say, but I was trying to be sensitive to them and, you know, what they were experiencing, and I didn't really know, you know, with the knowledge that we had at that point, how to best, you know, therapeutically communicate, and also because I didn't have as much knowledge to share with them. How did my simulation experience differ in comparison to other simulation experiences? And how can it be improved for future students? I think honestly this simulation was one of the most fun simulations I've had throughout nursing school. I think that it was more challenging in the way that, you know, the answers weren't given to us, but it allowed us to really think for ourselves, which is very important, since we are going to be graduating soon and we're going to be on our own soon. So I thought that that was good in a way that, you know, our other clinical instructors kind of talk about what you're supposed to do before you go into the room, and giving us the answers doesn't really help us, and it's kind of underwhelming. Whereas in this simulation for OB, even if it was a little overwhelming, we're going to experience that, and we need that exposure. I don't think that there's really much that I could think of to improve on, because I think that it was very helpful. I think that there's just kind of a stigma against it, thinking that we're a little bit scared before, which is totally fair. And then last one, if I could give one piece of unique advice to future students on how to be successful in this clinical, what would it be? I think the biggest thing is to, you know, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to be wrong, because that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And really just try to experience as much as you can with what little time we're given. Also, it's very, very important to, you know, be ahead with lecture material, because that helps to apply in clinical, because we're not always going to be on the same page in lecture as we are in clinical, as far as it goes with like what unit you're on. So as much material as you can know so that you can apply it is very helpful. And that is my final clinical assignment. Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you around.